It is a pleasure to be joining all of you today, and we are extremely privileged to have Devora Boroosan on the line. Before we get started, I'd love to see who's joining us and where you're from, so please feel free to go to your chat box. It should be on the right-hand side of your screen, and write your first name or your initials and where you're joining us from. I would love to be able to welcome you. Because it is such a sensitive topic that we're handling today, I do want you to know that we respect your anonymity. So again, if you feel like you'd just like to use your initials, that is totally fine. And all questions that we will be getting to today are also completely anonymous. So please feel free to put in questions throughout today's class, because we will be getting to as many as possible live on the line. I do want to go ahead and welcome, let's see, Georgina from London. Welcome, CRA. Welcome, Panina from Jerusalem. JC from Philadelphia. Oh, I'm sorry, C from Renana. Audra from Atlanta. Nechama from Jerusalem. Welcome, Mindy from Brooklyn. Toby, welcome. Maxine from London. Danny from Dallas. Jay from Miami. Jennifer from Miami. Welcome, Faggy from Borough Park. Hannah from Jerusalem. Miriam from Jerusalem. Welcome, SK from Midwood. Welcome, welcome to all. People continue to flood in here, and it is so nice to see everyone from all over the world joining in. I wish that I had time to welcome everybody, but let me just grab a Sherry from Florida. Welcome. And to everyone saying hi to Devora and hi to me, thank you so much. Welcome, welcome to everyone. From the time Jewish workshops began, we've offered a variety of programs on marriage, relationships, personal growth and introspection, and so much more. But last month was the first time we ever had the opportunity to focus on a full day of learning for men and women in this beautiful and unique stage of life. We featured speakers from around the world, but received the most feedback from Devora's class on intimacy. So we asked Devora to come back, and she readily agreed, as she has so much more to offer on this extremely important topic. Devora's passion for helping others is unlike any I've ever seen, and the sensitive nature that she embodies while tackling this sensitive topic is right on par. So make sure to stay tuned until the very end, where we will do our best, as I mentioned, to answer as many questions as possible live on the line, while of course respecting your anonymity. And you'll also hear about this one-time chance to join Devora for a full online program at a special discounted rate for joining today. Before I introduce Devora, I just did want to make a quick announcement as well. Tonight we do start Yom HaZikaron in Israel, and we received a lot of feedback from people who either weren't going to be able to join us or just wanted to make sure that we knew. So we will be taking just a 1-minute break at 8 o'clock when the alarm sounds in Israel. That would be 1 o'clock Eastern, in memory and respect for those who lost their lives. It is a supreme honor to be hosting Devora Boroosan. And just a short introduction, Devora is an educator with over 3 decades of experience in teaching, counseling, and community leadership. She is a certified relationship coach with clients in the United States and across the world. Devora serves as the Rebbitzin of Congregation Netzach Yisrael and provides parenting, marriage, and relationship counseling to members of the shul and the community at large. Devora has taught hundreds of brides and married women alike and gives marriage and intimacy classes for pre, peri, and postmenopausal women, and for women who struggle with intimacy after trauma. Devora, we are so grateful that you are joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and pass the microphone right over to you.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. I think that okay, there we go. There's your camera.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you, Jewish Workshops, for hosting this very, very important program. It was so exciting to me. Thank you for all of those who were so patient waiting for me to get on. I am so sorry. I will actually share a simcha with you. I was downstairs preparing for my daughter's Vort, her engagement party. She just got engaged. And I am running, taking care of all these things, trying to get my head into this headspace. And while I was thinking, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? Like, how am I going to stop in the middle of everything and come and talk to you all? I realized that's the theme of today. That's actually the theme of today. The theme of today is stopping to breathe. Stopping to breathe. seeing the bracha around you, seeing the opportunity that's around you, seeing that things change, things ebb and flow. There's like waves in your life, and there's always a new thing on the horizon to look forward to. And there are all the things that we did up until now, all the history that we've had up until now have built us to the people that we are today, into the situation that we are today, to the couple that we are today. And what a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful blessing in our lives that is. So I want to thank Hashem for me and for all of Klal Yisrael, every single person that's out there, for every single thing, thanking for the hard times, thanking for the good times, thanking for the possibilities in the future. And let's all take a minute to breathe. And then let's go on this journey together. Okay? Okay, let's start. So I was thinking, a lot of thinking today, because a lot of running, everything that's happened in my head. I was thinking, what would I want in a class? If I was going to take, 2 hours of my time to stop and listen to somebody, what would I want from a class? If I was just starting out, or if I was stuck in a situation that I wasn't quite sure what was going on. I wasn't sure what was happening with me, what was happening with my relationship, if I was in a state of confusion, if I was just plain interested, what would I want to hear? And I realized that had I been offered the opportunity, I would have been looking for knowledge. I would have been looking for information. I would have been looking for a certain amount of explanation of what's going on, of hearing that I'm not the only one who's feeling the feelings that I'm feeling, knowing that there's support out there, that I'm not the only person, and that there are other men or women that I can reach out to. There are other couples who are going through exactly what I'm going through. And also the knowledge of knowing that even with everything that is going on, life can be not only back to normal, but way better than it ever was before. Like a big, giant hope with a capital H, right? Now, I say that as if things are horrible. They're not, but everything is different. This is a time in our life where things are different. Our bodies are different. So let's first describe what of time we're talking about. What era are we talking about? Okay, now postmenopausal, menopausal and postmenopausal, and to a certain degree, even perimenopausal, is an entirely different stage of life. How come? Well, it's a different stage of life for a few reasons. Number one, most of us don't have young children around. We might still have children around, but we don't have young children around unless there are grandchildren, but we don't tend to have young children around. Some of us have never been married before, and all of this is new, but it's not what we heard about all the time, waiting to get married, what young intimacy was like, what young marriage was like. It's different because our bodies are different. Our emotional regulation is different. Our intimacy is different. Our approach to things are different. Oh goodness, everything is different. Everything about us is different. And along with that has come this incredible wisdom, this awareness of the world around us, this awareness of self, this awareness of other, a real wisdom that comes with age. Now I say age like we're, ancient crickety people, but the truth is, this can start already when we're young and vibrant and involved and active and physically fit and mentally alert, etc. And yet our bodies seem to betray us. So for those of us who kept Taharat HaMishpacha beforehand, the laws of Nida, this is also very, very different. For couples who kept neither. There was a time where we could be together and a time where we couldn't be together. And when we could be together, we optimized that time. We made the best of it. We built up to that time. We made sure we touched as much as possible. We made sure we communicated. This is when we took our dates. We made sure kids got into bed earlier so we would have time. We tried to make the most of the time we had because we knew it was limited. And when we were neither, then during that time, since we weren't available to our husbands and wives, we would work on verbal communication. We would work on emotional intimacy. We would take care of bills late at night because if one of us fell asleep ahead, it wasn't as bad, right? There was a very different ebb and flow to their relationship. There was always an excitement, always a newness. And then suddenly there isn't anymore. Suddenly a woman stops menstruating and there is no specified time where you can and cannot be together. And that kind of throws everything. On the one hand, why does it throw it? It throws it in good ways and in bad ways. I won't say bad. It throws it in good ways and in ways that you have to come up with alternative and more creative ideas for communication. Now, bad is the way most of us look like it because we think, we need a breather, or, oh no, again, or we think to ourselves, well, I have all the time in the world. So it's okay if it doesn't happen tonight. It's okay if we don't spend the day today. We can do it later on. We can do it tomorrow. And unfortunately, so many of us don't put the time into our relationships the way we need to, but this is when our relationships need it the most. So let's talk about why, okay? We're in a very different time of life. Let's look at what our lives actually look like right now. Now, I know I'm going to be describing what's considered maybe a stereotypical type life at this age. And obviously, not everybody has this stereotype in their life, but stereotypes are there for a reason. This is pretty typical of the way a postmenopausal family looks. Again, not for everyone, but take the parts of it that apply to you. And let's see if we can all be in this journey together, okay? So most of us have, not all, but most of us have children. No real young children around, but still children who need us. Especially older kids tend to need us more than younger kids. We're very physically active with our younger kids, but older kids take a lot of emotional energy, whether it's teenagers, whether it's marrieds, right? Even whether it's the preteen stage. We can have children in all these ages at this stage of our life. And yet, we're not running after our children as women, or even men, because men are the fathers of these children too, and they're involved in their own way also. We're not physically involved in the way we were before. So in a way, we have a little bit more physical freedom. Bedtimes don't take the same focus. Our kids tend to get themselves up in the morning. We don't get up 5:30, 6:30 in the morning because our babies are not waking up then. We have opportunities, especially as women, that we didn't have before. We have time. Who had time up until now? Especially if we worked in addition to being mothers. We worked, we wanted to put energy into our marriages, we wanted to put energy into our friendships, into our communities, into our children, and something always fell by the wayside. It's not possible, superhuman, to expect that everything would be able to be addressed equally with the attention that it needed. And so it wasn't. And certain things fell to the wayside. Most often what fell to the wayside is us as women. What we don't think about is that what often fell to the wayside was our relationships. So yeah, we tried to put time into our relationships, but imagine coming home after a day of work, busy with kids, right? wanting to sit down, wanting to spend time with their spouse, but the children also want your spouse, whether that means husband or wife, right? Children also want to spend time with both their parents. They finally get to bed. We're exhausted. Husband and wife both have responsibilities at that point that need taken care of. Nighttime's the only time to take care of them. Our relationships didn't get the same time. And Hashem noticed this. He knows this. And there's a time for everything. There's a time for giving to our children, and then there's a time for nurturing ourselves in our relationships. Because face it, at 50 or 60, this is only half a lifetime. We should, please God, be together till 120. And we want to nurture our relationships now. So the second half of our lives, whether you're 50, 60, 70, 80, doesn't matter. No matter what age you are, we are looking forward to a long life together with our spouses. And we want to make sure to give it everything we can. But we have to define what it means now to give it everything we can. So let's start with women. I like to start with women because women are the more confusing ones. Women are more confusing in general. We have lots of ups and downs. We have hormonal ups of menstruation. We have hormonal ups and downs of pregnancies. And now we have hormonal ups and downs of menopause. And those hormonal ups and downs affect us in lots of different ways. What our husbands probably notice the most is our moods and our energy. What we notice the most is our bodies, how our bodies change, our body image changes. And now we're going to talk about the menopausal stage now. So our body image changes as our estrogen drops. Our bodies change. Now, men, this is important for you to know also because your wives need a lot more validation at this point, that they're beautiful, that they're enough, that they're desirable, forget enough, that they're more than enough, that they're everything you dream of, everything you want. Because we look at our bodies and we see changing bodies. And whereas until menopause, we saw bodies that even if they were a little heavier or a little stretch marks or whatever, they were signs of pride. Now we see wrinkles and sags and bags and waistlines that no matter how much we exercise, we're not able to get small the way it was. All these different shifts, sagging skin, never mind our insides that are changing so drastically that make us rethink the way we approach intimacy. Our libidos drop, we become more dry inside. And we're going to talk a lot more about this in a few minutes, but I want to give a basic overview, right? So there's the way we look at ourselves. And then there's all the different changes that our husbands see. And by the way, men, when we're being difficult or when we're being needy or when we're being moody, a lot of times we don't even realize it. It's kind of what comes with the territory. And we're going to talk more about that also. And I'm going to explain to you why. Because the why is so important. When the why is clarified, all of a sudden, things just make sense. And there's a way out. So our libido shifts, our reactions to things shift, and we get really, really itchy, restless. All of a sudden we have this time and this energy, because see, as men's energy starts to wane, women's energy starts to burst. In her 50s, a woman has an extra burst of energy and a desire to get out and to do. Women start new hobbies. Women start new interests. They start new friendships. They join groups. They start new careers. They want to get out there and do. They've devoted themselves to their family and they still want to continue to devote themselves to their family. But there's a piece of them that feels like, wow, now I can tap into my full creative self in a different way than our projects and jumping on the bed and, crazy middle of the night birthday parties. Now I can do it on an adult level. I can use my brain. I can use the creative self that's appreciated by other adults. And this is something that is very, very exciting to women. They start new friendships. They find themselves involved in active friendships. And our men love it because it makes us way better people at a stage where there isn't children to distract from us, right? And it's funny, I told this story when we had our class right before Pesach, but I must say it again for those of you who are not on, because to me, this is what menopause was about, okay? I'm going to share this with you. When my daughter was in 12th grade, I started getting really, really nervous. She was my baby, the one who just got engaged, Baruch Hashem. She was my baby, and she was going to be leaving to seminary. And I told my husband, oh no, we have to sell the house. We have to move into a smaller space. We have to be closer to each other, because what's going to happen when she leaves? Are you going to be interested in me? Am I going to be enough entertainment for you? Are you going to enjoy my company when there's no kids around? Are you going to want to talk to me? Are you going to be out doing other things? When you come home, I'm just not exciting enough for you? Now, I understand that a certain amount of that is, because this is the clientele that I deal with in counseling. And yet, a lot of it was also that so much of my, and I think our identity was tied into being parents. We may have had a wonderful marriage up until then, but are we going to be able to sustain it? And I was seriously nervous. And I made my husband nuts. And all the reassurance in the world wasn't enough to convince me that he was still going to find me attractive, that he was still going to want to be with me, that he was still going to want to hang out with me, that we would chill and enjoy each other as much when we weren't talking about what was going on with the kids. And then my daughter left. With a lot of trepidation, I said goodbye to her, both because my baby was leaving, but I think a much greater part of that was because we were now on our own. Were we going to be able to survive this? And intellectually, I understood we were in a really good place. We had really good communication. That doesn't change just because we don't have any children at home. And yet my emotions were not following that. And that to me is what menopause symbolized. It symbolized something that was just an unknown, and a very scary unknown. Really scary. And guess what? Surprise! It was different, but it was amazing. I never realized how much fun it was to just spend time with my husband without distractions, without kids needing us. And yes, there's the phone and the door, and there's community responsibilities, and there's work responsibilities. But to be able to put aside that time was amazing. I also realized how blessed I was that I knew how to do that. I knew what it took to continue to sustain and to grow that relationship. Because up until now, I'd been guiding others, but I'd never had to do it myself. So I want to share with you some of what I learned from others, learned through experience, and learned through my own personal experience. And this brings me back to men. We always think of this time of life as menopause. This is a postmenopausal time of life. It's all about how we're different as women. And sometimes we get impatient or distracted or frustrated with our husbands. Why? There's a good reason why. And we think that that reason is because we have no interest, because we have more time. I've heard from lots of women that they even feel like they're outgrowing their husbands, that maybe what sustained them up until now was only the fact that they had kids to talk about and kids to be busy with. But that's not why. A lot of this also has to do with men going through andropause, something that's not spoken a lot about, because as Jewish women, it doesn't affect our lives the same way we think. And certainly not up until now, doesn't affect us in the same way. Because when we have a need to schedule, our whole life revolves around that. But as we get older, our lives revolve around both menopause and men who hit andropause, right? So let's talk about that. And again, we'll get into more detail in a few minutes. I just want to give a basic overview here. Andropause can hit men, or starts hitting men, somewhere around 40, believe it or not, younger. Not full strength right away, but that's about when it hits. And it hits from about 15 to 20 years, and it can last forever if untreated. What defines andropause? Well, menopause is defined by decreased estrogen, andropause, and progesterone also. And, but essentially, mostly estrogen. And men, it's defined by decreased testosterone, lower testosterone. And so much of the way we view our men has to do with their testosterone, has to do with the way men perform differently in their physicality, in their emotional worlds, in the way they relate to others, in the exact same way as we relate to the world differently once we hit menopause. And I have to apologize to the men here, because I can tell you as a fact that women underestimate their husbands at this time. They don't give them the understanding that they feel that they deserve. And yet, I think it's very, very, very much because there isn't education about this. We don't have knowledge about this. We don't know enough. Men themselves often don't know enough, and they think there's something wrong with them. So let me tell you guys, you're awesome. There's nothing wrong with you, just like there is nothing wrong with your women. We're in a different stage of life. Only better, only stronger, only with more potential and more possibility. Let's talk about what lower testosterone does to a man. And again, we'll get into this more. I just want to give an overview. I know I keep saying this, but I don't want anyone to feel like we're not explaining enough. So we will explain more in as much as we can in the limited time that we have, okay? So for men, most apparent to them is a little bit of decreased energy, a loss of competitiveness. 50, 60-year-old suddenly wakes up with night sweats and thinks there's something wrong. There is a little bit of a flabbier body. Body shape also changes. There isn't as much focus on men's physicality and their bodies as there is on women, so men don't take it as hard as women. And women notice more that their men, to them, without understanding, seem less manly. They don't have as much of an enthusiasm for life. Their moods are a little bit more blah. Suddenly they're maybe a little bit the cranky old man, right? Now, that doesn't mean that they actually are. But if you're used to a man who has super positivity and is willing to take on anything new with loads of risks, and suddenly they're a little bit conscious and a little bit cautious, all of a sudden to us, we may possibly judge that they're losing it a little bit, that there's something about them that just isn't as strong and manly and masculine, right? And that is so unfair, because they're going through all these changes the same way as we are. And hormonally, everything that we are, because of the changes it causes, they are because of the changes it causes. And I stress this to the degree that I do because women are educated much, much more. Women have classes on menopause, classes on intimacy, classes at every single stage of their life. It's all out there. Jewish Workshops offers tons. And if you want to learn about intimacy or marriage, it's out there. Men don't get talked to as much. There isn't as many classes, and certainly women are not spoken to. And for me, that was the incredibly exciting opportunity now to talk to both men and women. So you can get an understanding of each other at this time and what you can do about it and how you can strengthen your relationship through this. A lot of what we see is simply hormonal. Now, I'm going to bring up 2 points. Number one, hormones are a part of life, but there are ways to take care of your physical self that definitely help with your hormones. Everything from medical intervention, hormone replacement therapy, which is only helpful or is always helpful, but is only available to people who don't have other medical difficulties or medical situations. So you need to speak to your doctor about it. There's loads of vitamins that we can talk about and supplements that are helpful. For example, lower testosterone is often linked to lowered levels of vitamin D and zinc, among other things. We will talk about that, right? But to know that diet affects lowered hormonal levels, in addition to it affecting many of the medical complications that come up at this time. Hypertension, type 2 diabetes, etc., obesity, all the things that affect our estrogen and testosterone levels. A lot more is in our control, a lot more. And of course, lots of tefillah. Remembering that Hashem is in charge and asking him, help us take care of ourselves and please watch over us, take care of our bodies, help us find in it the patience and the perseverance and the wherewithal and the desire to maintain our relationships. Never forget, Hashem is the third partner in our marriage, just as he was the third partner in our procreation. Never forget that aspect. It's a really, really important one. Turn to Hashem and talk to him as often as you can. He's always there for you. And guess what? Your spouse is always there for you too. We're going to learn how to talk to him. That's number one. Number two, I want to remind you what intimacy is. Let's define intimacy. Intimacy is being in a relationship with your spouse where you know it's the only relationship of the sort, and being available and able and willing to be vulnerable without judgment, with knowing that you can share without being judged, and you can hear what they have to say without judgment. And that is the definition of intimacy. And that's why you could only have this relationship with one other person in the world, your spouse. That's it. And if you nurture that relationship, your intimacy is strong. And strong emotional intimacy leads to strong physical intimacy. Nurture it. Treat it with loads and loads of tender loving care. And it will grow. It will grow strong. It will grow vibrant. It will grow connected. And you will have intimacy and satisfaction in a way that you never even thought possible. Now, how do we do that? Well, there's the whole physical side of what's going on in our bodies. We talked about a little bit of the emotional life of a woman right now. Let's talk about the emotional life of a man. Okay? Right now, as a woman is soaring, as she is finding new heights, as she is finding new friendships and new careers and new hobbies and new interests, her husband wants to show her a lot of support. But it's difficult because here's a time where he's not as involved. He may have been given loads of acknowledgement at work, and now there are younger, more knowledgeable people at work. And if not more knowledgeable people who are more vocal about what they have to offer. And they're getting the new attention, and they're getting the new positions. And men feel a little bit more relevant at this time. And they need to get a lot more at home. Men need to get a lot more acknowledgement. They need to know that they're relevant to their wives at this point. With this wisdom of life, with this experience of life, men become a little softer. You hear that, ladies? Your men become a little softer, a little more gentle, a little more sensitive. They need a little more TLC. We know what that feels like because most women always want more. A lot of men want more all the time also, but along with age comes this vulnerability of, I depend on my wife a lot. I really do. I depend on my wife. And I want her there for me. And all of a sudden now, she's away. She's not here. She's always out doing something. I want my home life to be vibrant. I want to be spending time with my wife. And so let's talk about how we can do this. Let's talk about how we can nurture this relationship to make it the absolute most beautiful relationship that we can. For starters, it needs and deserves constant attention. I remember my mother telling me, my very, very wise mother, who guided me so beautifully in so many things, and I owe her such a debt of gratitude, and father. But this one came from my mother, and she said, remember, in marriage, every minute takes effort, every minute takes investment, every minute takes putting yourself out there and remembering your priorities. And each time you forget, it takes 2 days to make it up. I was way too big when I was young to understand what that meant. I'll be honest. I always remembered it. I never knew how to apply it. And in my young, very confident self, I was like, oh yeah, that's my mother's marriage. That's not mine. Although they were great role models, Baruch Hashem, for me. And I don't take that for granted either. I know many people don't have that. But nonetheless, now I understand it. Now I see, and now I hear from so many others, this is a time of life where you need to constantly be investing, where you need to be remembering the sensitivity, the importance, the sheer gratefulness that you still have a spouse, the commitment you made to your spouse. As Jews, we make a commitment to Hashem, to our worlds, to our communities, but first and foremost, to our families. And the foundation of our families is the relationship we have with our spouses. That comes first and foremost. It needs time. It needs touch. It needs attention. It needs real discussions, vulnerable discussions, open discussions. It needs trust. And when you're going to have a relationship, especially about intimate sexual things or deep, deep feelings that come along with age, and questions of, did I do this right? Did I express myself properly? Should I invest myself in this? To remember to turn towards each other. It's natural to turn towards friends. And yes, you always need the advice of your rabbi, but don't neglect the person who knows you the best for your faults and your weaknesses and your strengths and your abilities. It can help you in those decisions. This is a time to invest in that relationship, and you're going to make the most amazing decisions if you do it together. But it takes that vulnerability. It takes that trust in the relationship. It's trusting the relationship. What do I mean by trusting the relationship? I mean trusting the fact that you are together. There is a commitment there. And you've stuck it out through thick and thin. And if you're newly married, you have a whole new life you're about to commit to, or you have recently committed to. And you trust that, number one, Hashem put you with this person, and now it's your job to nurture it. And number two, trusting the relationship means trusting that he chose you or she chose you out of everybody else in the world. And that although you may not be perfect, you are perfect for each other. Trusting the relationship that it is where it is right now, and you are enough, and that you will continue to invest in the relationship, both of you, and help it grow. Trusting the relationship means that you know that you could come with vulnerability, and that if you don't know how to talk to each other with vulnerability and good communication, trusting that the relationship is important enough to both of you, that you're going to do whatever it takes financially, emotionally, physically, socially, spiritually, to make that relationship stronger and better. Because as important as it is to you, you will trust that it is that important to your spouse. And trusting the relationship means trusting first and foremost, and lastly, because this is the beginning and the end, trusting yourself, that you are enough, you are desirable, you are beautiful, you are capable, you are wise, and you will take every single thing that you have, every resource you have, into building this relationship, trusting yourself that you are going to do this and doing whatever it takes to do that, which includes classes, self-care, asking questions or looking for guidance when you're not quite sure where to go, and investing loads and loads of time and energy and vulnerability. Now, that's a really long definition, but that's really what it's all about. Because the truth is, these are not just words. The things that you're feeling right now are the same things that people have been feeling since creation, since the beginning of time. The things that you see are different. The things that you see are maybe confusing. The things that you think are not good enough, they're more than good enough. They're the way that they're supposed to be. And you can take them and make them more beautiful. You know, I'm really, really not artistic. I'm creative, but I'm really not artistic. But I love painting. You know why? I love painting because you can make mistakes and cover them up and turn them into something beautiful. And they don't have to stick to your original plan. I can paint something and it looks so silly, and I can add more paint and it could become something else. And what it becomes by the time I'm done is a totally new creation. Totally different, and oftentimes way more beautiful than and way more exciting than I ever thought it was going to be. What's more, I can stop in the middle and put some time into thinking. So what do I want to add? What do I want to change? What direction is it going in? Sometimes I don't even need to think what direction it's going in. I can just let it flow. That's what you're going to do with your marriage. That's what you're going to do with this time that you are together. Now let me check. I think it's getting close to the time with Yom HaZikaron. I'd like to keep track of that because that is so, so, so important for today and for us to put that time, even if it's just a few moments, into remembering and thinking. Okay. But if you get nothing out of this class, which I hope won't be the case, other than remembering that you are amazing, your spouse is amazing, your relationship is worthwhile, and you can make it the best possible relationship there is, you have the power to do so, you have the capability to do so, that will be enough. Because then you'll have the tools that you need to go out and get the guidance that you need. To get the help that you need, because the validation and the reassurance is there. Turn towards each other, not outwardly. Lean into each other. You know the classic way we talk about puzzle pieces of a shidduch? How one puzzle piece fits into another puzzle piece so beautifully. You know, there are times in our life where a 5,000 piece puzzle is more than we can handle. It's overwhelming. And if you try and find the puzzle piece that fits into the other puzzle piece, it just doesn't work. And when you finally do, you have to try a couple different ways to fit it in. But no matter how hard it is to fit in that puzzle piece, it's still the only piece that fits in. It is a pre-cut, predestined piece. And if we figure out the way to fit ourselves together with our spouses, we make a whole. Now, while I'm talking about that, we're going to talk about how we have to be a whole in order to become a whole. We have to not look towards our spouses to get everything we need. Our spouses can't be our best friends, our lovers, our confidants, our chauffeurs, our guides, our rabbanim, our psychologists, our everything. They can't. There's only so much that one human being can do. And that's why nurturing friendships is so important. And yes, we all want our spouses to be our best friends, but they're our best friends in a different way than people of our same gender. Because after all, as married people, we're not looking to have close friendships with people of opposite genders. That takes away from our relationships with our spouses. Besides, it's usually easier to have a friendship with somebody who is your own gender because they think like you do. They understand what you're going through. There's a lot more, it's a lot easier at that point to give validation. So it's, you know, that's usually the way it is. And yet our husbands are our best friends in such a significant way. They are our lovers, our one and onlys. They are our confidants, but in very, very special ways of talking. And the way we talk to our spouses is different than the way we talk to anybody else in the world, because it's so, so, so significant. Every word that comes out is significant. Every interaction is there for a lifetime. You know, we don't choose our children. They are who we are, so acceptance is easier. These are the kids we have. And if these are the kids we have, we'll learn to deal with what we have and even learn to love what we have. In friendships, we choose And if the friendship doesn't work anymore, it's sad, but sometimes we have to drop it. In relationships, we choose, and then they are ours. Then they belong to us. Then we have to approach it with acceptance. They are who they are, without that judgment, and learn to love what is. No different than we would with a child. Only with the benefit of friendship along with it. Friendship, companionship. Something that is so overlooked. That acceptance that has to be there. That doesn't mean that you don't say if there's something on your mind. I'm the first one to always say, never let anything go unsaid. There are just ways to do it. Ways to say what you need to say. Helpful ways to say what you need to say. And we're going to talk about now how that is. I just don't want to start as we're moving into something else.
Okay? Yeah, Devora, I think we're going to take just that 1 minute right now. It looks like it's exactly the right time. So we're just going to take a 1 minute pause for Yom HaZikaron, and then we'll get right back into the physical intimacy part, which I know people are writing in that they were waiting for.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone on the line as well. Devora, I want to get in. There's people asking about the full course that I mentioned, and there are also so many questions coming in. There's a piece I think that we haven't touched upon yet, and that are all of the physical changes and challenges that both men and women are going through, and how to deal with all of those. So maybe we can touch upon that right now, and then I will give everyone the information on your full course, because there's really just so much more coming, and I don't want anyone to miss out on registering. So if we could just touch upon, like I mentioned, the physical aspects of what may be missing or what may be coming up in challenging. I know you mentioned obviously mismatched libido, which was a lot of questions that came in, but we also see a lot of issues with ED.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that I didn't want to get started in that before we had our moment,
Sure.
because it's so important to be able to focus on the moment. Who can focus on something important when your mind is in the bedroom? So here,
Thank you.
Now, without emotional intimacy, there isn't the physical intimacy. And yet, physical intimacy is really what we want to focus on now. Specifically, even if nobody was asking questions, that's where I was going, because that's where a lot of the changes in our bodies come up. So you have a relationship outside of the bedroom. You've figured out everything we've talked about up until now. You figured out where you're up to, how to relate to each other, what's going on, and then you're heading for the bedroom. So the first thing I'm going to talk about the bedroom is keep it out of the bedroom only. It doesn't only have to be in the bedroom. Dance in the kitchen, cuddle on the couch, touch lots. Even if somebody's love language is not touch, they gain from the touching. Touching, you know, when you look at children who fail to thrive, especially in, you know, you look in the countries where kids are in orphanages a lot. When those children are adopted, they have failure to thrive, or they're so developmentally delayed. And all the studies show it's because they haven't been held, they haven't been touched, they haven't been cradled. Such an important part of development, physical and emotional, which is why your responses, your physical responses are so dependent on your emotional responses in such a large degree, is there. So make sure you touch a lot. Take every opportunity you can to reach out, to touch. Just walk by in the kitchen on your way to your office and just rub your spouse's arm. When you kiss, remember to rub their face, to show them they're cherished, to take advantage. As we all know, sex is not just sex. We want sex to be making love. And intimacy is not just emotional intimacy. There's a whole physical realm to intimacy. And it starts with the touching. Make sure you spend a lot of time touching. And in the bedroom, before we get down to the mechanics, make sure you spend a lot of time learning each other's bodies, even more, discovering all the newness, discovering all the nooks and crannies that are there in the person that you love. Spend time, don't rush. Sometimes it's especially helpful not to rush because we're not always able to reach completion. And it's important to learn to appreciate the time and the tenderness that we give to each other. That alone is so important and brings your physical intimacy to a whole new level. So let's start again with women. Women, when your estrogen level drops, and all the sags and the bags and the wrinkles we were talking about happen inside you also. All the vaginal skin and all the insides get more sensitive, get drier, get more delicate, get tears more easily. Physical intimacy becomes much more painful. And I say more painful because, yeah, there were times certain things, were painful. A woman who's nursing, her breasts might have been more tender. And that was something we felt more comfortable telling our spouses about. Oh, yeah, that hurts right now, but you knew it was going to be over, right? This is just the time of life we're in. And it's important for men to know that this is a physical reality. And it's important for women to understand that this is just what happens, but that it's your responsibility to take care of it. It's your responsibility to go to your doctor and say, okay, this is what's going on. Don't be with your husband and in the middle say, ouch, because then your husband's going to be afraid to be with you. He's going to be afraid. He wants to give you pleasure and he's giving you pain. He doesn't want to do that to the person he loves. So what can a woman do if she's in pain at this time? She can readjust her body. She can gently move his hand to something that he likes. She can tell him something that she enjoyed before, right? And then it's your responsibility to go and speak to your doctor. What do I do about this? Now, there is such a thing as vaginal moisturizers and vaginal lubricants. What's the difference? A vaginal moisturizer is a suppository-like thing that you put inside that has hyaluronic acid in it. And hyaluronic acid retains like 1,000 times its own moisture of its weight. Like it retains the moisture of the area. It helps keeps your innards more elastic. It helps keeps your insides bouncier. Helps them snap back. Helps you contract when you have orgasm, so that your spouse knows you're excited, so that you get a chance to feel your excitement. Right? You need those muscles to be worked on. A lot of times people need to go to a pelvic floor therapist to help strengthen those muscles. And by the way, pelvic floor therapy helps even for women who've had loads of babies and are a little bit saggier down there and therefore more open and are unable to retain their husbands during penetration. It's something we don't think about, and men certainly don't think about. But if a man is at a stage where he may be experiencing ED, or he's able to have an erection but not maintain an erection, if you're loose from having babies, if your muscles are loose down there, you need to do pelvic floor therapy to be able to hold your husband inside of you. You need to be able to contract those muscles. That is what you go to pelvic floor therapy for. It's very, very important. Now, vaginal lubricants is because you're very, very dry. Now, we talked about moisturizers being something that retains the moisture, which it does, and it also helps it continue to be that way. But lubricants are needed for on the spot. Now, generally, lubricants are your friends. Generally, lubricants improve satisfaction, improve just enjoyment when you're together. It's more enjoyable for both a man and a woman. But at this time, it becomes very necessary so that you don't do damage. You don't want to be doing damage to your wife and a woman. You want to put yourself in the most optimal physical way to be able to accept your husband, right? To internally accept your husband, for him to be able to make love to you in all ways. And therefore, you always want to have a lubricant on hand. Definitely, as we said, there is estrogen replacement therapy, but speak to your doctors and see what works best for you. There is vitamins that you can take, supplements. There is maca, which is actually good for the sexual health of both men and women. You want to speak to your doctor, find out how much you need at that point. If you're just starting, you need way more than it says on the bottle. And then you build up DHEA for him and her. Also is really important. Vitamin D, vitamin B, also very important. These are all things, and as we said, for men's zinc, these are all things that are that increase your sexual health, because the truth is this is a time where there is very mismatched libidos. A woman who was always excited to be with her husband. Sometimes women are even more excited than their men. They have a higher libido. All of a sudden, menopause comes. Not now, not interested. And that feels horrible. It's like, what happened to my marriage? What happened to me? Is there something wrong with me? Is there something wrong with my husband? Is there something wrong with what we were doing before? How am I going to still be with him? Because I still want the closeness. I still want the touching. I still want the hugs. I still want the cuddles. I still physically want to feel excited. I'm a sexual being, right? Libidos drop when menopause comes. For some people, they completely disappear. I know many women share this with their husbands. It is not prudent. It is not wise. What does your husband need to know that for? Why does he need to begin asking all the same questions as you when it has nothing to do with him? That's your responsibility to go to the doctor and say, what can I do to increase? Because remember, yourselves as a unit, the two of you, the strength of the relationship depends on your being open to being available to each other emotionally and physically. So if he desires you and you push that away, you are closing a channel of closeness and intimacy and communication in your relationship. And this is a relationship you want to have last. Don't close yourself off. Don't discuss this with him. This is a discussion you have with your doctor, with your mentor, or with your friends. Anyways, a man gets to a point where his libido drops off when there is And that's actually for two reasons. Number one, because men are afraid of hurting their wives at this point, because there are so many women who say, ouch, or I'm not really interested, and they feel badly. But there's also performance anxiety, because lower testosterone also means that there is problems maintaining an erection, or sometimes even getting an erection. And that makes them feel really badly about themselves. Men, we don't think anything less of you if you can't maintain an erection. Yes, hot, passionate, penetrative sex is awesome sometimes, but it doesn't need to be every single time. Most times, we can connect and get what we need from sexual intimacy, from lovingness, from closeness. What's more, most women, I think it's only like 8% of women who actually orgasm from penetration. Most women need external stimulation to reach orgasm, and that you can do no matter what. Her body is there. And also, so much of a woman's excitement is emotional, and it goes on in her mind. So make love to her mind. Make love to her emotions. Remind her she's beautiful. Remind her she's sexy. Remind her she's desirable. Remind her she's your one and only. Remind each other of this fact. Remind each other that you chose each other and that you find the other person sexy and desirable. That's so important, right? And yet the mechanics of showing that could be more difficult. So number one, there's the dryness of women. Number two, there is erectile dysfunction. Now I need to put in here, never just accept. Number one, go to your doctor. Number two, there is so much that is allowed halachically that we would automatically think is not okay. Speak to your Rav. Never make a decision on your own that we can't do this, we can't do that, or this isn't good, or because I can't do this, it's not going to happen. Speak to your Rav. Ask your rabbi all your questions. There's so much available out there for you to learn about and to find is okay. There are different techniques. There are different ways of being together. And there's just so much, if you speak to your Rav, that is allowed. Ask, and don't listen to me. Don't listen to any share. Don't listen to any class. Every person has a rabbi. Go to your rabbi and ask that question. That is the most important thing you want to do, because there's so much available. Physical intimacy is a rich and gorgeous and exciting world. Hashem gave every inch of our body meant for excitement. And do you know that it discusses that the clitoris is the only organ of the body that was given for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is pleasure. Every other organ of the body, external or internal, is able to do more than one thing. The clitoris was put there specifically for pleasure. And the clitoris is, well, it has an internal component, but it also has an external component. And that's the part that is where most of us are aware of, right? And that's the part that responds in the most obvious way to external stimulation. And so use the whole body. Remember, the arms and the legs and the feet and the ears and the scalp and the neck are as much a part of our spouse as their other feminine and masculine parts. And we shouldn't forget about that. We shouldn't forget that their entire bodies are there for our pleasure and to give them pleasure. And remember that you are entitled to pleasure too. You want to give pleasure and you want to receive pleasure. And at this time, so many people say, I'm going to be a martyr. I'm going to do it because my marriage needs this. That may work for the individual time, but it's not sustainable. You want to be an active part of your physical intimacy. Ask your spouse, what do you like? What do you enjoy? What turns you on? What would you dream of my doing? What can we try? How can we be different? Shake it up. Change positions. Do it differently. Use fun things. Make it exciting, right? There are halachos around how you have to do it, Jewish laws around how you have to do it, but that doesn't take the excitement out of it. There is so much that is allowed. All you need is a little bit of imagination and creativity. And talking about creativity, we're going to have to get creative with positioning here. There are a number of positions that become much more difficult postmenopausal. But there are ways that a man can be with his wife and a woman can be with her husband that are more helpful. Number one, supporting yourselves with pillows, either under your back, under your head, or under your behind. You have to work with you and see whether it's the man on the bottom or the woman on the bottom. You want to play with that pillow to make yourself more accessible. Now, this is especially helpful when there is ED issues. ED issues, you have to understand what ED issues are for starters, okay? ED issues have to do with circulation. Very often they come with age because circulation issues come with age. Lower testosterone causes ED issues. A lot of the medications that we're on at this point cause ED issues. And it may not happen all the time, and we may not even know that it doesn't happen all the time because it happens a couple of times and you get afraid. Again, go to your doctors, check it out. But even, and sometimes there's cancers and sometimes there's prostate issues. There's so many reasons. Find out what they are, but realize that even when you know what they are, sometimes you need to deal with it in a different way. One of those ways is changing around the positioning. The pillows help with the positioning if you're not able to get so hard, not able to enter your wife. As much of a tip as you can that can enter will often be in one of these positions. One is if the person on the bottom is lifted higher. Another way would be with a man standing and a woman laying on the bed with her legs up on his shoulders or around the sides of his arms. And that way he is able to position the best way that he can to be able to complete inside for proper penetration. There is other ways. There is like the scissors position where you're spooning, coming in from behind with leg spooning, where there's easier access, again, will be helpful. There's many other positions. Again, speak to your Rav. Make sure you know what is allowed for your community. There is different ways of defining the halacha here, and yet Hashem wants for your pleasure. So there are different ways that you're going to try. Remember that at this time, breasts are a little bit more sensitive, and that goes both ways. In other words, there are some people who spent their entire marriage up until now where their nipples were so sensitive that if anything touched them, they had to be careful with the undergarments they wore because anything that touched their nipples hurt, even their husbands. And now suddenly it provides tremendous physical pleasure and stimulation. Whereas for some women, this is an area that suddenly becomes more sensitive. Testicles get a little smaller at this time. Maybe when they were a little larger, they were very sensitive. And men didn't want their women touching the area or only gently. Suddenly now, it may be something that gives them pleasure. It could be that with weight changes and body changes, areas of the body that didn't have the nerve endings as close to the surface now are closer to the surface or now respond differently. Travel each other's bodies, trail down, find the erotic areas, right? Find these places that cause pleasure. Make sure you let your spouse know with as few words as possible while you're together, with the sounds, the moans, the groans, the arches, right? The way you move your body, the way you hold on to your spouse. That this is something that's giving you pleasure. And why do I say with as few words as possible? Just practically speaking, it kind of interrupts the flow. The person has to stop what they're doing, get out of the groove to be able to hear what you're saying, unless you're up in their ear whispering sweet nothings, right? It's a little bit harder to focus at this point. And not only because of hearing difficulties, but just because it is. You know, it's hard to stop in the middle, so you want to be able to focus on that. It's just a time where you really want to, put the physical focus on each other. When there's been hip replacements, knee replacements, shoulder replacements, all very, very common at this stage of the game. Also, positioning for sexual intimacy is more complicated, but doable. It takes the desire and the will to connect, to play, and to be in a non-judgmental space. Not to say, oh my goodness, I can't believe that I'm someone who can't be with my husband the way that I want to be with my husband. What's he thinking of me? What's she thinking of me? Is she thinking less of me? And to just go with it. This is just part of our new and exciting phase that we're in. This is an entire new era, and we're going to get creative and have fun and spend the time together and explore in a way that we never did before. And remember, women are just as pleased and excited when you're done, even if it doesn't complete in standard penetration. They still feel loved. They also have a lowered libido, just like you do. Now, sometimes we think, we used to be together multiple times a week. We're down to once a week. I've had people tell me once every other week. What's happening? Don't we desire each other? What's going on? So I can't say that there's a normal or a right amount of times to be together. What I will say, as all my professors have said, you don't use it, you lose it. When you don't depend on something and you don't see it as a need, you stop needing it. We have to remind ourselves that we need to be together. We want to be together. The excitement that's there, we want to build as many neural pathways to connection as we can, so that we know that twinkle in the eye, the excitement that's there, the flirting that we're doing with each other will end in satisfaction, will end in connection, will end in oneness. We want to put a lot of focus into that. And so try and be together as often as possible. Try as often as you can. Obviously, you need full consent. It needs to be what both want. But if you're tired, take a cup of coffee. If you know you get tired after a day's work, take a nap if you know that you're going to be able to be with each other. And another idea, by the way, is have a sign when you're interested in each other, so that, have one or the other of you take off your watch if it's the only time you take off your watch, so that the other person is interested. Give them the opportunity to say yes and to show you, so that there isn't that feeling of rejection if they really can't. Set up something that looks decorative, and change the decoration to show that you're interested. Put flowers in the middle of the table to show you're interested in any way. And rule of thumb, most often as you can, say yes. Because especially women, even when they think they don't have a desire, and even when their bodies aren't interested, women, I encourage you, when you start, you'll find your body goes along with it. And you'll find your heart goes along with it. Because there's never enough loving. So I go from here into questions with the bracha that you continue to give to each other, and to focus on each other, and to grow with each other, and to enjoy each other physically. Physical intimacy is one of the biggest gifts we have. It's a way of expressing ourselves. It's a whole other language. And the communication around it with each other is hard. Asking each other for what you need. Men, listen to your wives. They know how their body feels. Listen to them and what they want and what they need. And men, tell your wives what you need. Don't worry about judgment. Tell your wives what you need, so that they can pleasure you the way you need to be pleasured now. And now I'm open for questions.
Thank you so much, Devora. I think that we definitely hit upon so many things that people were waiting for, and We just had such a beautiful comment. This class should be halakhically mandatory to all new couples. Devora is an amazing communicator and not embarrassed to speak plainly. Truly commendable. Thank you, Devora. I want to make sure that I'm able to answer people's questions too about how you can continue on. If you are interested, come on back and just let me know. Right? Yes, I'm interested to hear more in the chat box, and I will get to all of the information you need to help you register. I don't want you to miss out on any of this guidance that Devora is offering coming up to us. So let me get right to it. Over the next 4 weeks, you will enjoy a full journey with Devora, starting with the next session, which is happening next Monday already, May 1st, and that is inspiration, the era, the emotions, the physical changes. It's time to untangle the world of unasked questions. Once you know what's going on, the road is clear for an awesome ride. We will delve deeper into this exact time frame and what you can expect and how to, again, gain more connection and more closeness with your spouse. Then session 2 is motivation, the key to soothing relationship insecurity. The inside scoop on the hearts of men and women at this time, things you didn't even know about yourself, how to give to one another when your needs feel so difficult in this era. Session 3 is transformation, experience intimacy like never before, love, connection, and intimacy revisited in the bedroom and in the rest of your life, covering the anatomy, physiology, and psychology. And finally, session 4, elevation. Prepare to be surprised. This is the advice you've been longing for. The hidden gems in this class will elevate your mood, your relationship, and even your wardrobe. So each session is going to take place on Mondays at 12 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Israel time. And as I mentioned, our first session begins next Monday, May 1st. And each session is actually extremely unique for us. It's going to be a full hour and a half. So it gives you a full hour of content and 30 minutes completely focused on answering your questions so that you make sure you have everything you need to really make this journey as personalized as possible.
If I could interrupt you for a minute, I feel like we did a lot of the hows, and this is all about the whys. And the reason we want to give so much time for questioning is because this is such a sensitive topic, and there's so many questions, and your voices are important. Your questions are important.
Thank you. And I want to make sure that you know that if you can't make it to the live class, you don't have to worry. All of the classes are recorded and you'll have access to those in your own personal membership area the very next day after the class is given. And you can listen to those, download them. You have access for a lifetime. So you can listen, re-listen, take notes as you please. Plus, I just really want to mention, and I think that you can probably gather that just from the passion that you heard from today, it's really Devora's mission to give you an experience unlike any other. Her level of depth and care creates a completely different process than you've ever tried before. It's not like picking up a book or listening to a class on YouTube. Devora is going to really let you know throughout the next 4 weeks and will take personal care to answer all of your questions. As I mentioned, it's very different than anything we've ever offered before. Usually our classes are just an hour, and we'll offer some question and answer time at the very end of each series. But right now we're going to have a full hour and a half so that you make sure each step of the way you get your questions answered. And if you know you won't make it to a live class or you weren't able to make it to one of the live classes, you can always email your questions into us. We can have Devora address them on the very next week's session. However, in addition to all of these, you'll also be getting a personal phone consultation. So if you feel like you have a question that you don't want to ask during one of the classes, you can also speak with Devora personally and gain the mentorship that you want on your own personal situation. Plus, throughout your journey, you'll also have the ability to WhatsApp Devora or email her to get additional questions answered. So if you feel like you weren't understanding some of the content in one of the classes, if you feel like you have a very personal situation that needs to be addressed outside of the classes, you'll also have that guidance. And in addition to all of that, we will have an additional live bonus session on discovering how to create new interests and hobbies together in order to transform your retirement era, I should say, into an extended vacation. So really learn how to renew and rejuvenate the time that you guys get to spend together. Again, as you can see, Devora is really going to be walking you through all aspects of creating a nurturing and healthy and happy relationship with your spouse. It seems almost as if you're getting session upon session with your own personal counselor, and we all know how expensive that can be. But this is a community of like-minded individuals all gathering together to learn with Devora. Plus, you also get your own personal access on the side. Really a package that we haven't been able to offer before. Extremely, extremely unique. And aside from all of those things, the most important is that now you're going to really be able to learn how to communicate your needs in a way that you will be heard and accepted. You'll gain a new perspective on your changing body and the joys of this period of your life. You'll find common ground to unite through the challenges that this age presents. Finally, overcome physical impediments by finding new avenues for pleasure and connect in a new and exciting way that were not available to you during your fast-paced younger years. All of that can be yours for a really, really low price. We are actually offering, as I mentioned, a special discounted rate just for being here today. And I want to make sure that you understand just for how much one-on-one time you're really going to get. You have the 4 live content-rich classes, including a full half hour of question time. You'll get access to all of your recordings in your personal membership area, plus the one-on-one phone conversation, plus email and WhatsApp access, and an additional live class, all for only $397 today. All of that is included in your package, and I'm going to share the link in just a minute. I wanted to just really quickly mention, because this is so exciting, and it's actually something that I would have never expected, but we had a member call in earlier today before our class ever even aired, and she was so excited about the content that she knew was coming from Devora that she registered immediately before we ever had our class, and she actually purchased another package for somebody who wouldn't necessarily be able to afford it if not for her. So the opportunity to give this chesed and this tzedakah that she was doing, because she knows how important it is to people, is giving us the opportunity to offer a special raffle to all of you. So everybody who is joining right here on the line, we will have the opportunity to pick one special winner that we will refund and give to for no charge at all. Thank you to our special anonymous member. So please make sure to register and get automatically entered into our raffle. We're doing that right now over the next 20 minutes to half hour while we're still here on the line. I'm going to put the link right now, www.jewishworkshops.com/couples. You can actually go and take that right out of the chat box, so you can open a new browser while you're still listening, because we are going to take as many questions right now live on the line, and I want to make sure that you can get those addressed. I also see more questions coming in, so I will get to those as soon as possible. And I just want to make one more announcement for anyone who joined us during our Aging with Purpose event, which we had mentioned in the very beginning. Anyone who joined us for that event and listened to Devora's class, you do have your special coupon code, so please feel free to use that, or email jewishworkshops@jewishworkshops if you have any questions. And once you're in, please come on back and let us know that you're in. Just come on back with your first name or your initials and write "I'm in," so that I can welcome you to the community. And if you're having any difficulties registering, please come on back and let me know with your name and your telephone number. I don't want to miss anybody. I certainly want you to get your chance to get automatically entered into the raffle. And of course, I'd love to be able to help you register. Hannah and Sephora are here with me. They're standing by to also answer questions and help with registration. Excuse me. I'm seeing that there's someone saying that the link is not working. I know that that can often happen when too many people are all going at once. So let me just make sure that that is still working okay. It's www.jewishworkshops.com/couples. Please come on back and let me know if for any reason that is not working still. Not .org, it's .com. Okay, let me get to some questions here. Devora. A lot of what you said today seemed to assume that the problems stem from menopause. What if the challenges come from a long-standing difficult marriage relationship and are only exacerbated by menopause? Would it be better to get individual counseling rather than attend this course, or will that also be addressed?
That is such a fantastic question. I was wondering if I should approach it on this class at all, because that's a whole nother animal, but the truth is I'm glad you asked. Difficult marriages, just like during COVID, when you have a lot of time together, difficult marriages only became more difficult, and strong marriages have an opportunity to become stronger. So without the guidance, definitely it is a hard thing to do. So I'm going to go the pros and cons of both. Okay. If you just do this class, you will learn a lot. And if you do it together with your spouse and it's been a difficult marriage, you're hearing the same thing at the same time, and you're able to have discussions afterwards. If you're a couple that will make the time and is good at having those kind of discussions afterwards, where it doesn't turn into a blame or shame game or a finger pointing game, you want to stay far away from that. If not, what you want to do actually is go to a couples counselor or a therapist who also works with each one of you individually. And I can't encourage that enough, because a lot of times people will go for therapy or go for coaching, go for whatever you're looking for, and they grow and they get validated and they get strong and they begin to understand themselves in a way that their spouse never can. And therefore, they have more problems with their marriage. They almost like outgrow their marriage, outgrow their spouses, because they don't know how to take the strengths that they learn and the commitment that they learn to themselves and their needs and bring it in a healthy way into the marriage. And so I would suggest, again, that you go to a couples counselor who also sees each person separately. That could be me or anybody else who you choose to go to, but that is the model I would look for if you always had a difficult marriage and now it's exacerbated by this time of life.
Thank you so much for addressing that. I hope that that answered the question. There is another question that, again, another one of the challenges of the freedom that you described, with not having younger children around, is also sometimes diverted by new challenges like taking care of aging parents. With the emotional and physical attention that takes from us, how would you recommend, again, kind of connecting with your spouse?
I say you're jumping the gun. We're going to cover that in the class. We're going to talk about taking care of aging parents and how it drains you so much, and how to focus on, and by the way, not just aging parents, also married kids and grandkids, and how to prioritize time, how to communicate with your husband when you have completely different outlooks on the direction you should be taking. That's especially complicated when you talk about aging parents, because it's either her parents or his parents, but there's the spouse who's also involved in the care. But there is two different opinions that touches on a lot of sensitivities that often even depend on the dynamics in the relationship the child had with his parents or the view they were raised with, etc. So it touches on so much. I would do it a disservice to talk to now. The one thing I would say is remain curious. Don't hold on to your opinions and what you think is the right thing to do without first really listening to where they're coming from, what makes them choose the things that they're choosing, what makes your spouse feel that this is the right way to deal with it, what makes him or her feel like they need to spend, let's say, this amount of time at this time as opposed to being at a family event. Why do they think it's important? Listen first, digest it first, give it some credence, validate the feeling, and then if you still feel that it's applicable, share your feelings at that time. But there's an intense sensitivity when you're talking about aging parents, and it is incredibly draining. And especially with the Alzheimer's out there now, it's not just physical taking care anymore. There is a lot of emotional roller coasters going on with and mourning, like deep mourning before the person's ever gone, that you're dealing with in a spouse. And it takes incredible sensitivity and vulnerability to be able to prioritize and strengthen your marriage through this. So I wish those of you in that position just like the best strength. And remember, you've got yourselves a third partner. Pray for this, dive in for this a lot to be able to do it. And I'll teach you the skills on how.
Thank you so much. I just want to go ahead and welcome our brand new members and remind everybody, once you're already in and you're registered, it does look like the link is working. Thank you for those who are coming back and letting me know. Please just make sure you come on back and write your initials and the words "I'm in" so that I can welcome you. And I just want to go ahead and welcome Hannah, and welcome David, welcome ES, welcome FM, and welcome JL. Thank you so much for letting me know. If there's anybody else that I'm missing, please come on back and let me know. You're all registered automatically for the raffle as well. And I do see some people putting in their phone numbers who need help registering. If you need any help, have any questions on how to register, please come on back and let me know with your phone number so that we can make sure we give you a call and get your spot secured. Oh, and welcome, Sarah. Thanks for letting me know. Devora, there was a question that came in. Now that my wife cannot have children anymore, I'm having a difficult time understanding what the focus and what the point is of continuing to have an intimate relationship if before we were focusing on being together for childbearing purposes. Now, what should our focus be on?
Okay. That's a really good question and a massive misconception. There are two separate mitzvos that are brought down. One is puravu, having children, and the other, which is actually in your marriage contract, in your ksuva, which is giving pleasure to your wife. And it is way up there with the other things that are considered oxygen to a marriage and therefore a man's responsibility, and that is clothing, feeding, and having a roof over her head. Those are the top four, giving pleasure. In other words, pleasure is specifically a part of a marriage. Physical intimacy is to bring you closer, to bring the Shekhinah. It says that Hashem's presence enters into a home during the time of physical intimacy. When there is this oneness, when there is this connection, there's an opening for Hashem's presence to come in. And it's a very important part of the cycle. If you have emotional intimacy, which leads to physical intimacy, which leads to emotional intimacy, because if you have a beautiful night together, you're going to be kinder to each other the next day. You're going to be sweeter. You're going to feel more connected, which leads to more physical intimacy, which leads to more. And you get the cycle. It's a constant cycle. And you stay married to this person your entire life, please God. And you want to continue the cycle of strengthening your marriage. And I feel, and I don't know you at all, and I know that this is a massive misconception, but I feel like if you put a little bit of focus on sensation when you're together, and on your right to have that sensation, and your right to have that pleasure, and look at your spouse's face and look at the pleasure that they're getting right? Knowing that you are the only one in the world that can give this to your spouse, that alone helps you be more mindfully present when you are together and makes your marriage much, much stronger. The physicality is a huge, huge, huge component of that. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you again to everybody who's registering. Yes, it looks like the link is working for some and still having trouble with others. So again, I just urge you to please put your phone number right here into the chat box. It does look like the traffic going there all at once is really just clogging things up. So I don't want anyone to miss out. Baruch Hashem, we have so many registrants. And Devora, we have many more people saying thank you sincerely for this incredible seminar. Thank you for being so open and letting everybody really be able to delve into such important information on the emotional side, on the physical side. I think that this was really important and people can't find it anywhere else. So we're seeing lots of appreciation. But I do want to also get to a few more questions. And one question that just came in, just to make sure that I clarify everything that is included in the package. And thank you for coming back and asking. As I mentioned, it is 4 full weeks of live sessions, each an hour and a half. They're all taking place on Mondays at 12 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Israel time. However, if you can't make it to a live class or you want to re-listen at any point, you will always have the recordings available to you in your own personal membership area, which you can listen to or download at your convenience, so that you can, again, listen, re-listen, share with your spouse. One ticket to register for $397 includes the full couple. So whether you're listening to it on your own or you're listening to it with your spouse, or each spouse wants to listen separately, of course, each household is included in that one purchase. Plus, you'll also have the bonuses of personal phone consultation, which will take place after the 4 sessions. And I think that that was really smart of us. We've learned since other classes with Devora, but to make sure that you really feel you get the full gamut of what Devora is offering in all of the content, and then to come in, with your consultation afterwards to help kind of work things out with your personal situation. But throughout your journey, you'll have that email, WhatsApp access, so that you can get questions answered if something is unclear or you need more guidance in a certain area.
And you can make those appointments after you've signed up. You can make those appointments through Jewish workshops.
Exactly. Yes, we will send out all of the information that you need. So just keep your eye on your email inbox throughout the next 4 weeks, because there will be lots of important information coming to you. Okay. Let's get to this other question that just came in. Any suggestions if, since menopause, my wife has been very reluctant to discuss intimacy and never initiates, although always is available when I initiate?
Okay, sounds to me like you have a very, very loving wife. Sounds to me like she wants to please you, but she's having some difficulties with accepting the fact that her libido is not as strong as it was. Or maybe she has no libido at all right now, which could be, or that it is physically painful for her, but she wants to nurture your relationship, so she's available for you whenever you reach out to her. So the first thing I would say is give her a big hug and kiss and tell her thank you. The second thing I would say is encourage her to speak to somebody. Speak to somebody about what she could do about the things that are on her mind. It is a hard conversation to have. That's why we have so much of one of our classes devoted to how you have this conversation. What are the sensitive sides to it? There's a lot of perceived judgment in it that when you actually have the conversation isn't even there. A lot of this, I feel, is probably beating herself up and has very little to do with her love and her commitment and her devotion to you. That's usually the case if she does also make herself completely available to you when you reach out. So I would lovingly and gently encourage her to speak to a doctor, to speak to a friend, to speak to a mentor, or even to get counseling, to find out what things are standing in her way. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Our time is coming close to an end. We are running out, but I do want to just let everybody know, if you have any questions, please feel free to write them in to the chat box. We've got time for maybe 2 more, and I've got one here on the side. So if you have any other questions, please feel free to put them in. And please, I'd love to welcome any new members, so feel free to also just write your initials and the words "I'm in." I do see RS and FW. Welcome. If there's any more that I missed, please come on back and let me know. Devora, I'm not sure that this is actually something that we'll be able to necessarily address completely on the line today, but there were a number of questions that came in ahead of time on halachic parameters. And is that something that you will address, or that I know in the past you've reached out to Rabbanim for, couples or people's questions. I just want to be able to address that for the people who are looking for those answers and are possibly either embarrassed to ask themselves or don't have that halachic authority that they're comfortable reaching out to.
And those are exactly the 2 reasons why I am more than happy to speak to the Rabbanim that I have, the rabbis that I have on my list of people that I ask. And if you have a specific rabbi that you hold by, but you are embarrassed to ask, I'm happy to get his name and number if I'm not already in touch with him, and be in touch with him to ask him this question, of course, anonymously. It would never be about you specifically. There would be no names. The halachic parameters that I give on here, I am endorsed by multiples and multiples of rabbis, and I never take a step without asking questions, not even in my presentation and the language that I use. I ask halachically for the parameters to be clearly defined. There are some things that I will mention are possibilities maybe on our class, and then I will always turn around and tell you, but don't take my word for it, go speak to your rabbi. Some rabbis will say yes, some rabbis will say no. You want to know what it is that your rabbi says. And so I stay very clear and transparent from beginning to end halachically in everything that I say.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad that we were able to address that, and I hope that that does help people going forward as well to feel comfortable either asking their own halachic questions or having you do so.
If you could see under my contacts the R numbers, the pages and pages of Rav, Rabbi, Reb, so many, because, you can't take a step without it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Want to go ahead and just welcome JD from Florida. I'm so happy that you were able to join, and I see a number of others joining as well, but I will keep your anonymity. Certainly, I will respect that. Devora, with just a couple minutes left here, if we could, we've, thank God, still got hundreds of people on the line. If we could just leave them with some parting words, and again, especially if somebody's perhaps on the fence or not sure if this is the right journey for them, if you could just help end up today.
Okay. This is the right journey for everyone. To be honest, and not because it's me, and not because it's Jewish Workshops, although thank you, Jewish Workshops, for offering it, but because if you don't take advantage of growing your marriage and learning how to do it, and learning to understand, and learning techniques, and learning skills, and learning how to grow your intimate life, there's only one way it can go, and that's down. Nothing in life stays stagnant. And we want that growth. We love our spouses. And if we don't love, we want to love. If we don't desire, we want to learn how to desire. We want to learn all the different ways we can be with them, all the different ways we can enjoy them. And I think the most important reason is because we were given this amazing, amazing gift of being able to connect in a tangible way. Feelings are so hard to describe. When you feel something and you're trying to describe to somebody how you feel, you're limited by the language you have. Whatever language that is, both in terms of, English, Hebrew, whatever, but also in terms of your background and the comfort level that you have. And yet there's no boundaries on the languages of love and commitment and connection and longing and hope and desire that you can convey in a physical manner. In physical intimacy, the pleasure and connection is something that you can't get any other way. And I'd like to be able to help you travel that journey in the best possible way that you can. This is for you. Who is it not for? This is not for somebody in an abusive marriage. This is not for somebody in an abusive marriage. This is not for somebody in an abusive situation. You should be turning for help to your rabbi, to the proper organization that can help you out of your situation or to help you navigate your situation. This class is not for you, but for anybody else who is staying in a marriage, even a difficult one, but has decided to stay, this is for you, because we're going to make it better. You know, I'm a strong, hopeful person because I know it's there. I know it's possible for everyone, but don't let that fool you into thinking that I don't know the hardship that goes into it. We all put in loads of effort. The ups and downs, the personal crises, the family crises, the mental health situations, everything that comes up, physical health, family dynamics, so much comes up. I'm familiar with it all, and I still hold on to this hope because I know it can be. I know it can be. I know it can happen, and I wish it for you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who joined us today and spent your time with us. I am going to leave the webinar open for just a few extra minutes. You won't hear or see us anymore, but the webinar will stay open so that if you still need help registering and have any questions, you can come back and just put your phone number into the chat box. Without your phone number, we can't reach out to you and we can't help you register, but everyone who's registered already is automatically in the raffle. And if you still want to get in, please just put your phone number. We will give you a call shortly. And if you've already put your phone number in, please stay by the phone because we will give you a call shortly as well. Thank you so much for everyone who is here. Thank you, Devora. And I look forward to joining as many as possible next Monday for our next session. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Jewish Workshops, for sponsoring this, for hosting this. This is amazing. It's an amazing opportunity. And thank you, everybody, for joining me. I loved your company.
Thank you.
And I hope you walk away with a Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a great day.